What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we are checking out what is the oldest city in each US state.
This should be interesting. I'm not sure.
Absolutely no clue. I don't know.
I'm hoping it's 22 minutes. I'm hoping it's going to give us a bit of detail.
I think it is. Like I said, this is every state. We've got 50 cities we're going to go through, and it seems like a bit of detail. Smash that like button, guys. Smash that subscribe button. I'm ready to learn a little bit of history of the US. Hopefully you guys are as well. If you're enjoying it, like I said, do what I said a second ago. We would really appreciate it. And check out Patreon. Why not? It does really help us out. Are you ready?
Yes.
The oldest city in each state. What have we got?
The process of settlement of the US has always fascinated me.
Right, to do us up.
And I always think of it in contrast with, for instance, European countries. Some European countries today didn't have the exact same borders when they were first established. Portugal, for instance, was established in what is today northern Portugal and then expanded south, conquering land from the Moors. But when they conquered this land, there were already settlements and people there, structure and infrastructure that they took as their own. The capital of Lisbon was already a great Moorish city, for instance, and even had been around since Roman times. However, with the US, things aren't quite the same. When Europeans arrived in America and when the US became independent on their own, they either found natives that they removed, not usually using any of their cities or structures, but instead building their own. Or they found deserted places that they settled for the first time. As the colonization of the territory of what would then become the US started on the East Coast, we can usually see a real difference in the timeline of when settlements were first established across the country. So for this video, I thought it would be an interesting exercise to go through each US state and find out what their oldest city is, when it was established, why, and how.
Makes sense. Check out General Noise, by the way. There's links in the description. Well, after this video, though.
Yeah, don't do it now. Sorry.
I would imagine the oldest settlements are the most interesting for you watching, and at least for me they are. So let's start with those and go chronologically onwards. Remember, this is the single oldest city first established in each US state. I will provide a brief overview of each, not too long, since we have 50 of them to go through. The state with the oldest first city is Florida. Oddly, Florida wasn't even a part of the initial 13 colonies that declared independence from the British as the United States. It was a Spanish colony. However, there were already settlements there when the US annexed it, and so it enters this list in first place. Its oldest city is St. Augustine.
I always thought, I knew Florida wasn't part of the original colonies, but I just assumed it was still like a Native American kind of territory, which just hadn't been, I guess, taken over. I was going to say discovered, but technically it is discovered if the Native Americans are there. Yeah. But you know what I mean? I just didn't think it had been colonized yet. But obviously it had by the Spanish. Wow. Did not know that.
Established in 1565. It was founded that year by Spanish Admiral Pedro Menendez de Avilés, Florida's first governor. He named the settlement San Agustin for his ships bearing settlers, troops, and supplies from Spain, which had sighted land in Florida 11 days earlier on August 28, the feast day of Catholic Saint Augustine. The city served as the capital of Spanish Florida for over 200 years. It's a city that has existed under the sovereignty of 4 different countries: the Kingdom of Spain, the Kingdom of Great Britain, the Confederate States, and the United States. The second state on this list has its oldest city as one that was also first settled by the Spanish. Located in New Mexico, Santa Fe was first established in 1607. This shows us how, I believe, St. Augustine is the only modern city that can trace its founding to the 16th century. Upon settling in the area, Spanish soldiers and Catholic missionaries tried to convert and rule over the local natives, the pueblo. Its name is therefore fitting, meaning holy faith in Spanish. They revolted in 1670 and burned down every building except the palace of the governor. The natives controlled the area for a few years before it was retaken by the Spanish. Next, we go back to the East Coast to Plymouth, Massachusetts, which was first established in 1620. Prior to the arrival of the Pilgrims, the location of Plymouth was a village of the Wampanoag tribe called Patuxet. Soon the Europeans arrived. It was the final landing site of the first voyage of the Mayflower. It was established in December 1620 by separatist Puritans who had broken away from the Church of England, believing that the church had not completed the work of the Protestant Reformation. It was these settlers that celebrated the first Thanksgiving. A little further north is Kittery in Maine.
That's why it's called Plymouth, an English town.
An English town, yeah. Have we been to Plymouth?
Yeah.
We might have passed through it.
Plymouth is...
is it near Poole?
That's Portsmouth. We're thinking of the wrong place. We've not been to Plymouth.
No, Poole's different to Portsmouth.
Yeah, but I'm thinking on the boat we've been to.
Yeah, I think
we've driven
Plymouth is
through it.
next to Port.
I think we've driven through it.
And I think if we have driven through it, I think it looks very nice. Does the American one look very nice? Let us know.
You know what it looks like.
I think we've drove through it. And I'm like, oh, Plymouth is quite nice.
No, I think we drove through Southampton.
No, I think Poole is next to Plymouth.
I have no idea.
I have no
Let's
idea
look at a
either.
map later.
We're going to have a look at a map after this. You guys will have to look yourself.
Which was established in 1623 and is therefore the state's oldest city. The English settlement around the natural harbour of the Piscataqua River began this year. The town developed into a centre for fishing, trade and shipbuilding. Its name came from the family home of an early settler, Alexander Shapley. Regardless of which city people live in and which time period they live in, there's always issues that they struggle with on a daily basis. And today's sponsor is a way to deal with that, BetterHine. It's their question wherever you help their place. Back the word settled another northeastern state, or you can just scan the QR code. Now back to the video. Another northeastern state is New Hampshire. Its oldest town is Dover, first settled in 1623 too. Its first name was the Latin Portus Dubris. The word Dover came later and derives from the Brythonic word for waters. Explorers from Bristol, England, first settled the region. They were mostly fishermen, but a salt farm was also established there, being a very small settlement at first of only 3 houses. It's the 7th overall oldest settlement in the United States.
Okay.
The next state with the oldest city is actually New York, with Albany. Albany was first settled by the Dutch. Reason why their flag today is still the horizontal Dutch tricolor. It was first settled in 1624 with the construction of Fort Nassau by an explorer of the Dutch East India Company, who was, however, English, called Henry Hudson, after whom the Hudson River would be named. The name of Albany as a town, however, comes from the Duke.
There you go, Hudson River's named after an English guy. Did not know that. It's interesting because, again, you're just seeing all the different countries what were, I guess, fighting for power at the time, exploring and discovering new land. But it's also interesting, you'd have thought, like Albany, you'd have thought this would have been advertised, like, go to New York, visit the oldest city in New York. I'd never heard of Albany. Do you know what I mean? And again, with other places, let us know maybe if there's reasons why. And then you also look at the dates. There's this kind of I said stereotype of America doesn't have much history, which is very common, isn't it? Mainly because like if you go to England and stuff like that, there's houses thousands of years old and stuff like that, which is also absolutely mental. But like the way people talk about it makes you think, oh, America only started in the 1900s, which we know it isn't. We know the War of 1812 and stuff like that. But then you see 1600s. That's still a solid 400 years.
That's a long time.
And then you add on to the fact that you guys have done so much in them 400 years is absolutely incredible. But like so much time to jam history in. And I feel like people make it seem shorter than the 1600s.
Yeah.
Obviously, you've got the history of the Native Americans before that, but I guess people kind of class this period as the start of America.
Yeah.
But again, let us know in the comments below.
Of York's Scottish title, the Duke of Albany, when the English took control of the area in 1664. Moving on to Delaware, the oldest town in the state is Lewes. Its name derives from the Old English word lew, meaning hill, presumably referring to School Hill on which the historic center of Lewes stands. It was founded as a whaling and trading post, also by Dutch settlers in 1631. The colony had a short first experience as a local tribe of Lenape natives killed all 32 settlers in 1632. The Dutch came back, and then eventually the British took it over. Many of its old buildings are still preserved if you want to visit and get an idea of how the colonists lived. Next is Williamsburg, Virginia, which was established in 1633. Williamsburg is famous for being old, so this makes sense. Initially, Jamestown was one of the very first settlements of English colonists in America. It could trace its origin back to even earlier, in 1607. After a fire burned Jamestown to the ground, the government moved to Middle Plantation, which was then renamed Williamsburg in honor of the English king. Then Windsor in Connecticut. Initially, English colonists bought this land from the natives that had settled it first. They established a trading post and named it after the Windsor Castle in England, or rather the place where the castle is, and eventually a town grew around it, lasting up to today. Wisconsin's oldest town is Green Bay. Explored initially by French explorer Jean Nicolet, he named the region La Baie Verte for the color of the water, green, when he arrived in 1634. The name was then anglicized when the British took control of the area after the French and Indian War of 1754 to 1763. Moving to Providence, Rhode Island. Providence was established in 1636 by Puritan theologian Roger Williams. He had just been banished from the Massachusetts Bay Colony for advocating the separation of church and state and condemning colonists' confiscation of land from the natives. A very progressive man for his time. He named his new settlement Providence in gratitude for his newly found safety. Next is surprisingly Michigan, with Sault Ste. Marie settled in 1668. I think what happens here is a lot, if not all, of the current East Coast states had much earlier settlements than these. It's just that many of them didn't last or ended up moving around, being settled. Jamestown is a great example of that. So these Midwest states end up making it further up on the list than they would, since we're listing the oldest towns still in continuous existence up to today. In 1668,
I say it is surprising where you go, there's 12 colonies on the East Coast and you're already at Michigan before you do them all. But that does make sense.
French missionaries Claude Dablon and Jacques Marquette founded a Jesuit mission at this site, naming it after the archaic French term for St. Mary's Falls. Maryland's oldest town from 1649 is Annapolis, also founded by another Puritan exile from Virginia, originally Anne Arundel's town. The name was changed to honor Princess Anne of Denmark and Norway, the heir to the throne, who became Queen Anne of Great Britain. It's apparently called the Athens of America due to its European-style layout rather than a grid. Moving to New Jersey, it's Jersey City, which was first settled in 1660. It has been proven that natives had lived in the area for at least 10,000 years. But then Dutch, Swedish, and Finnish colonists arrived in the 17th century, and it was eventually established as a part of New Netherlands by the Dutch West India Company. Its name seems to come from the state name, which in turn comes from the town in England. Next is Charleston, South Carolina. Charleston was settled...
No, a town in England.
Yeah, talking about Jersey.
Oh, was you talking about Jersey? Oh,
It's
yeah,
New
of
Jersey.
course.
We're not a town, excuse me.
Yeah, we've been done there. We live in that old Jersey. But Millie's from here, so she's probably more offended.
We're
I don't
not a
care.
town. Town in England.
An island.
You're from a town in England.
I am.
I'm from an island that's more closer to France than it is to England.
But I would argue my town in England has a high population, so...
Yeah, but that's not the point.
I know, that's not the point.
I'm not from a town in
England.
England.
Apparently Charleston is beautiful.
Rude.
We need to get to Charleston one day.
In 1670, when at the orders of King Charles II, after whom the town is named, several shiploads of settlers arrived from Bermuda and Barbados. An interesting fact is that it's where the first official shot of the Civil War was fired. Illinois' oldest city is Peoria, named after one of the 5 Illinois native tribes. It was founded as a settlement in 1680. There, French colonists and Native Americans lived in reasonable harmony until 1812, when US soldiers burned down much of the village. Then, Pennsylvania's city of Philadelphia, a Quaker town. It was founded by William Penn when King Charles II gave him a grant over the Pennsylvania territory. Founded in 1681, it's still one of the biggest cities in the US today. Alabama's oldest town is Mobile, and it's been around since 1702. I think it's the first on this list to make it into the 18th century. Settled by the French when they built Fort Louis, it was the first capital of French Louisiana, being switched around between Spain, France, the British, and finally the US. It takes its name from the local Mobile tribe. In North Carolina, the oldest town was settled in 1705, and it is Bath, named for John Granville, the Earl of Bath in England at the time. Initially settled by French Protestants that came from Virginia, it started off having around 12 houses and 50 people, and today it's still only home to 245 people, a pretty small but old place. Louisiana's oldest town is Natchitoches, named using a native term that I definitely mispronounced. Built just 4 years before New Orleans, it started in 1714 as a small outpost for the French to watch over the Red River, where trade was held with Spanish-held Mexico. Next is Mississippi, whose oldest town is Natchez from 1716. Established also by French colonists, it was ceded to Great Britain in 1763, then changing hands to Spain in 1779. It served as a hub for forced labor to supply the surrounding sugar and cotton farms. Finisene is Indiana's oldest town. It dates all the way back to 1732, established by French colonists as a fort to protect the local fur trade from the British. It eventually expanded into a town itself. We can see this fantastic blueprint of it from a little later in 1876. It takes its name from its founder, François-Marie Bissot, who held the lordship of Vincennes in France. It's very interesting to see how so many of these states that are now located in what used to be French Louisiana have their oldest towns founded by the French during those times. In Georgia, Savannah
also,
is the oldest.
That's a grid system, wasn't it? Like, that's very American, it seems to me. Maybe it's French. I don't know. We haven't really been to France cities, have we?
No.
But in the UK, they're not done like that at all. But obviously there, and obviously New York is a grid system. A lot of American states which we've been to is blocks and grids.
Yeah, California wasn't it? San Francisco.
California was at times as well. San Francisco. So it's interesting to see how that's done. Is that a French influence, or is that just something they did in America? Let us know in the comments. It's interesting.
Oldest town. It's interesting how in some states the oldest town is also one of or the most relevant city in modern days, while in others it's just some super small village with a couple hundred people. Anyway, Savannah became known as America's first planned city due to its meticulous grid of streets, named for the Savannah River, which probably derives from variant names for the Shawnee, a Native American people. Then Vermont, where Westminster is the oldest town, named after its namesake in England. Its first official name was actually Township Number 1. It was founded in 1734, but didn't have permanent settlers until 1761. St. Genevieve is next, in Missouri, established in 1735, founded by Canadian settlers and migrants from settlements in the Illinois colonies. It was named for St. Genevieve, the patron saint of the city of Paris in France. Fort Pierre is South Dakota's oldest town. It was a thriving fur trade town after its establishment in 1743, being initially French, a part of the Louisiana Territory, and then falling into American hands, like I said, with the Louisiana Purchase of 1803. In West Virginia, we have Shepherdstown.
Which, by the way, let us know. There's a video which I've just had on at Google Sheets for ages, which is about the Louisiana Purchase. Let us know if you want to see us do that video, because all I know is that a big piece of land was purchased, and in today's money, it was purchased really cheap.
Oh, okay.
Like when you compare it. So again, let us know if you want to do that one.
62 by Thomas Shepard, after whom the town is named. I imagine there were a lot of shepherds, but I guess not. He had a land grant from the British to establish a settlement in this area. Initially it was called Pack Horse Ford and then Swearingen's Ferry, but eventually they changed the name. It still only has about 1,500 people today. California's oldest town is, in contrast with West Virginia's, one of its major cities today, San Diego. It was established in 1769 by the Spanish, named by a Spanish explorer after Saint Didacus of Alcalá. It all started with the construction of a fort, as is the case with many on this list, Presidio of San Diego, and then the city grew around it. Harrodsburg is Kentucky's oldest town since 1774. A frontier town, it was first established by explorer and soldier James Herriot, who took a few men to the area near the Salt and Kentucky rivers in this year and settled there. Again, a pretty small town today, but still going up to 8,000 people. Tucson, Arizona is the last on this list to be established before U.S. independence in 1775. Its establishment is very similar to that of San Diego. San Agustin del Tucson was founded as a walled fort by the Spanish as a part of their colonial empire. It then became a part of Mexico and then the US. Its name comes from the native word for the nearby Sentinel Mountain. Next is Jonesboro in Tennessee from 1779. It predates the state. It's owned by 17 years. Previously in territory held by North Carolina, it was also briefly the capital of the temporary and not official state of Franklin. In fact, it's named after...
Never heard of the state Franklin.
No, neither.
He's about to say what it's named. I'm guessing it's going to be a president, but we'll see.
After North Carolina legislator Willie Jones, who had supported the state's westward expansion across the Appalachian Mountain. Texas' oldest town is Nacodoc, also from 1779, and also one that I definitely just mispronounced. It's a rare example of a town that was not only in a place ruled by the natives, but actually a Native American town. It remained a Caddo settlement until the early 19th century. In 1716, Spain had established a mission there, but they didn't really have sovereignty over it. Eventually, more French and Spanish settlers moved there, trading was set up, and a stone fort was built. The city has been under more flags than the state of Texas, claiming 9 flags, in addition to the 6 of Texas. It also flew under the flags of the temporary Magui Gutierrez Republic, the Long Republic, and the Fredonian Rebellion. Marietta is Ohio's oldest town, founded in 1788 by pioneers of the Ohio country. Marietta is the first permanent U.S. settlement.
We've got all the way to Arizona and California, and then there's still an Ohio town, which is only the oldest one has only just formed in 1788. I guess that's a case of knocking down, burning down, whatever, all other towns?
Yeah,
because surely there was something in Ohio before then.
Yeah, but you think we've still got a good 10 minutes, probably.
Oh, exactly. We've still got a lot more states, but you'd have thought there'd have been more West Coast than East Coast.
True.
But you just got this one in the middle, towards the East Coast, and it's 1788. Let us know in the comments about that one.
In the newly established Northwest Territory, created in 1787, and what would later become the state of Ohio. It is named for Marie Antoinette, then Queen of France, in honor of French aid in the American Revolution. Next is Georgetown, Arkansas's oldest settlement, named after...
Oh, did he just say Arkansas?
Arkansas.
Next is Georgetown, Arkansas's oldest settlement.
I don't know. It's meant to be Arkansas, isn't it? I'll pretend he said Arkansas. I'm not sure. Let me know in the comments.
French aid in the American Revolution. Next is Georgetown, Arkansas's oldest settlement, named after, and this sounds like a joke, but it isn't, 3 guys that lived there and initially bought, sold, and developed the land the town was on, because apparently they were all named George. Settled within French Louisiana and then later incorporated in the United States, today it has a little over 100 people, and sadly, they are not all named George. All the way in Alaska, Kodiak is the oldest continuously inhabited place. It was actually established when Alaska was a Russian colony, and it was set as the first colonial capital. Kodiak was established by Russian fur hunters and traders of the North Sea otter. Today, the city is one of the largest fishing ports in the US. Pembina is North Dakota's oldest town. It's another example of a native settlement, first inhabited by the Chippewa natives. The French soon arrived and joined their community, living together in harmony under, I would imagine, native rules or no rules at all. However, in 1797, Charles-Baptiste Chabolet established a trading post there, and the settlement began to grow and become more official, if you will, initially under French rule. Moving to Oregon, we have Astoria. Astoria is named after America's first millionaire, John Jacob Astor, who founded the town as a fur trading post. It's the first on this list that was established in the 19th century, more specifically in 1811. A few years earlier...
Alright guys, it has been 24 hours. Archie woke up yesterday. He's got an ear infection at the moment as well, so he's a little bit on the cryy side. We didn't really get a chance to record yesterday after that, did we?
No.
So we're here today, 24 hours later. We've gone back a little bit. We've seen the North Dakota one, and I don't know what's next, but we're going to go and figure out the next one. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
If you're enjoying this video, do smash that like button and subscribe button. We would really appreciate it. And let's go.
More official, if you will, initially under French rule. Moving to Oregon, we have Astoria. Astoria is named after America's first millionaire, John Jacob Astor, who founded the town as a fur trading post. It's the first on this list that was established in the 19th century, more specifically in 1811. A few years earlier, in 1805, the Lewis and Clark expedition spent some time at Fort Clatsop, a small log structure nearby. All the way in the Pacific is Hawaii. Its oldest town is Ilo. Ilo was settled thousands of years ago by Polynesian migrants. However, the official creation of the modern town dates to 1822, when Christian missionaries arrived to convert the population. Right after them came European whalers and sea traders that further developed the town. Back in the continental US, we have...
What's a whaler?
Someone that speaks to whales, I think.
So they came to...
This is a whaler. That's what a whaler is, right?
Wow.
That's what
Nebraska. It's the state's oldest town, and it was established in 1822 as well. Its name means beautiful view in French. Originally founded as a trading post for the Missouri Fur Company, followed by a Christian mission. They were hopeful to become the state capital, but Omaha was chosen instead. Further south in Oklahoma is Fort Gibson. Established in 1824, the name is an indicator of how the settlement came to be. The families of military men, local Native Americans, and freed slaves settled around the fort and made it into a town. The original purpose of the fort was to protect both European and migrating Cherokee settlers from indigenous tribes such as the Ozaukee Nation, which were more aggressive towards them. Next is Minnesota, and its oldest town is Wapasha from 1826. Previously a Sioux territory, the nephew of Chief Wapashau set up a trading place. The town's name comes from that chief. In the 2020 census, it had just over 2,500 people. Moving to Kansas, Leavenworth. Fort Leavenworth was founded in 1827 to protect the fur trade that passed through the region. Its strategic placement along the trade route helped it grow and turn into a full-on town. In Iowa, Dubuque is the oldest continuous settlement. It's named after Julien Dubuque, a French-Canadian fur trader, but it was only after his death that the government of the US allowed the settling of the territory in 1837. The land was rich in lead, which led a lot of migrants to the East Coast to move there. Get it? They were led by the lead. Stephenville, Montana is the oldest town in the state, and it's named after Territorial Governor Isaac Stevens. It was initially named St. Mary after the mission that Jesuit missionaries established there in 1841. Interestingly, this mission was actually done by request of the native Salish tribe who wanted to learn about European methods of agriculture and medicine. It eventually led to their destruction. Next is San Luis in Colorado. Founded in 1851 by Spanish farmers and named after the Catholic saint San Luis, it is a town today that only has around 600 people. Founded in the same year was Genoa in Nevada. Genoa was first settled in 1851 by Mormon pioneers in what was then the Mexican territory of Alta California. The settlement originated as a trading post called Mormon Station. Soon after, they renamed the settlement to Genoa in honor of Christopher Columbus's birthplace, Genoa in Italy. Isolated by challenging travel conditions such as the...
Was it Genoa?
I don't have a clue.
Is it not Genoa? Is that not like your...
That's Genovia.
Genoa. How did you know I was thinking
Which
of
is
that?
not a real place.
How did you know I was thinking
Because
of that?
when your little smile went, is that not you? I knew you're talking about the Princess Diaries.
I was. Is that not a real place?
Genovia is not a real place, no.
I haven't probably watched it, but I've heard.
No.
Princess of Genovia.
Yeah, no, but if
That's
my
not
grandma would like to tell me that I'm Princess of Genovia anytime soon, that'll be great.
Yeah, just heir to millions.
The threat of bandits along the route to Salt Lake City, Genoa evolved nearly independently following its establishment by the Mormon settlers. In Utah, Ogden is the oldest settlement, also from 1851. Originally named Fort Buenaventura, the land was conveyed to an American settler in a Mexican land grant. The settlement was then called Brownsville after Captain James Brown, but was later renamed Ogden for a brigade leader of the Hudson's Bay Company, Peter Skene Ogden. All the way in the northwest is Washington's oldest town, Steilacoom. Founded by British sailors in 1854, the waterfront colony briefly glowed with potential in the 1850s, aspiring to thrive as a timber town which was supplying the construction of San Francisco and other settlements around it. It even aimed to compete with San Francisco as the main West Coast city. However, despite being so far away from it, the town's progress was stunted by the challenges of the internal conflict and especially the rise of more advanced ports in Seattle and Tacoma. Today, it quietly thrives as a residential community. Franklin is Idaho's oldest town, established in 1860. Also a Mormon town, it was named after an apostle for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. There's not much about it. It's a small town of around 800 people today.
And finally, for this video, like the main states for some of them would have been quite big, but a lot of them are very, very small. I guess maybe not either forgotten about or the infrastructure potentially is that bad because they were the first town that just moved on to bigger things. Let's see, Wyoming, the least populous state, is also, I guess, the youngest one in terms of cities. Oldest city.
Video, the oldest town in Wyoming, which has the youngest out of all the state's oldest settlements, Cheyenne. Cheyenne was first established in 1867 with the arrival of the Union Pacific Railroad. It takes its name from the Cheyenne native tribe, which previously inhabited the area. Due to the trains, it grew so quickly that it gained the nickname of Magic City of the Plains. It is the state capital today and a city of over 65,000 people. So, that is the oldest city in each US state. Again, not the oldest cities in the country altogether, as like I mentioned at the start, many states have older towns within them. Maybe Pennsylvania has 15 different towns older than Washington's oldest town. But the point here was to understand and learn about the oldest continuously inhabited settlement up to today for each state. Have you ever been to any of these towns?
Yeah, let us know if you've been to any of the towns in the comments below, what they're like, especially like the ones which hold like 600 people.
Yeah.
Because I imagine surely they must all have a tourist shop. The oldest state, the oldest city in Wyoming.
Yeah, it must do.
But if only 600 people live there.
What's the point?
Yeah, what's the point? Smash that button if you've ever visited. Smash that subscribe button as well. If you're enjoying these videos, we would really appreciate it. We've got a music channel. Check that out. And watch the video.
Have a fantastic day.
And we'll see you legends in the next one. Peace.